Welcome to Hood Boy Stories. In this episode, I'll be discussing the war between the Pasadena Devil Lanes and the Villa Boys. Pasadena is a city northeast of Los Angeles in the San Gabriel Valley. Founded in 1875, it's famous for its Rose Bowl, an annual tournament of roses parade. In the center, Old Pasadena is a shopping and dining district known for its Victorian and Art Deco buildings. But Northwest Pasadena is the side of town that rarely gets the limelight. It's an overlooked part of the city that's clustered with numerous gangs. The biggest one of them all is the Pasadena Devil Lanes. In fact, they are one of the largest gangs in San Gabriel Valley. They originally started off as a spin-off set by Jerry Smallwood from the LA Devil Lanes during the late 70s and early 80s. The Pasadena faction of the Devil Lanes also went by the Devil Lanes. Members of PDL participated in the dark side of satanic worship. They would routinely do demonic rituals, which included blood sacrifices, chants, and praying to the 13th candle. They took influence from 89 Family Swans, in particular, Timothy Johnson, who taught them to absorb energy from their enemies. And the best way to do it was to inflict pain on them. Their territory stretches from Washington to Orange Grove, from Los Robles to the 210 freeway, with King Manor being PDL Ground Zero. Their allies include the LA Devil Lanes and the Crenshaw Mafia Bloods. They beef with the Altadena Block Crips, Do-Rock Crips, Raymond Avenue Crips, and the Villa Boys. The Villa Boys are a Mexican-American gang located in Pasadena. The Villa Boys were originally a clique from Northside Paso. They eventually broke off from them in the 70s. Originally, Northside and Eastside Paso were the biggest Latino gangs in the city. By the 90s, Eastside Paso faded away, and Northside Paso, although still strong, did not recruit as hard as the Villa Boys. The Villa Boys tripled their numbers by putting on small cliques around their area and a large tagging crew called CFK, which they turned into the Crazy Boys clique. When the Villa Boys were created, they wanted to be different, so they went with the 14, not knowing about prison politics. Also due to the fact that they would all hang out on the 1400 block of Villa Street. The founders of the Villa Boys were newly arrived Mexicans, and once they started going to prison, the 14 was quickly changed, and they got with the program. During the 80s and 90s, PDL and the Villa Boys got along and coexisted in their respective territories. By the 2000s, what initially was a small dispute escalated into an all-out war. On May 7th, 2007, Franklin was walking down the street when a Nissan approached alongside him. Inside the car was Jose and Joseph, who were from Villa Boys. Jose then brandished a gun and called Franklin, "You big-headed Nick," with a hard R. They then sped off. Franklin had gone to school with Joseph. Later that same day, around 2 p.m., Rachel was outside her house on Washington Boulevard. A gold Dodge passed, but made a U-turn and came back. Now westbound on Washington, 3 Hispanic men with bald head were in the car. 2 men sat in the front and the third in the back. Rachel saw 1 gun, maybe 2, come from the driver's side of the car, although she couldn't tell who held the gun. Tony was sitting in a parked car, listening to music. Out of nowhere, Jamal came running towards Tony. The gold Dodge drove by, and someone in the car yelled out, "Villa, fuck PDL!" Multiple shots rang out. Rochelle dropped to the ground. Jamal was lying in the street, and Tony was in his car. Both shot. Jamal and Tony died from numerous gunshot wounds, 4 each. Neither victim had stippling around the wounds, meaning that the gun was at least 2 feet away from the victims. Scared, Rochelle didn't immediately report what she saw. Instead, she was in custody for having a fraudulent gift card. When during a monitored phone call with her sister, she mentioned the shooting, a detective then interviewed her. From a 6-pack photo lineup, she identified Jose as the driver and Joseph as the rear passenger. A day later, Joe Haffen, who was from Villa Boys, was outside his home. An SUV drove up and 45 black males got out. They proceeded to beat him down. Badly wounded, Joe Haffen went and talked to police. He also told them that he was near the scene of the shooting. When he saw the gold Dodge, which he recognized as a Villa Boys car, he told officers that Jose was driving, but Joseph might have owned it. He further told authorities their hood name, which is Dopey and Brujo. Authorities began to survey Jose and Joseph from May 11th to May 14th. On May 11th, officers saw Jose and others get into a white Ford driven by Joseph. They passed the housing complex that was a known blood hangout and continued past Washington, where Jose threw a Villa Boy gang signs at some black men. Joseph pulled alongside 2 black women, and gang signs were thrown at them as well. When the car passed a black man wearing red shorts, they yelled something at him, and the black male yelled back and made gang signs. Later, the car stopped at an address on Allen, and 2 women in the silver Dodge drove up and talked to Jose and Joseph. Officers stopped the car 4 times that day, but no weapons were found. Officers continued to follow Jose and Joseph, observing them. On May 14th, they drove slowly past the blood hangout. Officers stopped the car again, but found no weapons. That evening around 7 p.m., a detective watched the car, a black Nissan, that was driven by Jose's stop. 3 people got out of Jose's car and approached a group of black men and 1 Hispanic. The men who got out of Jose's car exchanged words with the Hispanic man and pistol whipped him. They then drove away, yelling and throwing Villa Boys gang signs. Jose and Joseph were arrested a few days later. They were both ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder. They were each sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Over the next few years, tensions between PDL and the Villa Boys remained bitter. In 2011, PDL and the Villa Boys were engaged in a violent conflict, which involved several shootings and murders. Although the area around Mar Vista and Villa was Villa Boys gang territory, PDL controlled a small section of that area on Mar Vista, just north of Villa. On the evening of August 22nd, 2011, Scott was at his cousin's house on Mar Vista Avenue in Pasadena. He was with Steven, Maurice, and Ricky. After leaving the cousin's house, the 4 men walked south on Mar Vista together. But when they reached Villa Street, Steven told Maurice, "Just go to Brandy's house. We gonna come over there. I'll meet you over there. We about to go do something." Scott and Steven continued walking down Mar Vista toward Maple. Feeling something was fishy and weird, Maurice waited at the corner of Villa and Mar Vista and watched to see where they were going and if they were going to return. In the meantime, around 9 p.m., Cynthia drove to Mar Vista to pick up her boyfriend Marvin. He was at his friend's apartment, located on the east side of the street, between Villa and Maple. With her 3-year-old son in the back seat, Cynthia parked on the west side of the street and remained in the car as she waited for Marvin. Marvin came outside and leaned into the driver's side window to speak with her. As they talked, Cynthia saw Marvin look over his shoulder and look at Scott, who was slowly walking down the east side of Mar Vista toward Maple. Scott was wearing a dark shirt and a dark unzipped hoodie sweatshirt with the hood pulled over his head. Scott stopped and stood in the driveway of the apartment from which Marvin had just came. As the 2 men eyed each other, Marvin said, "What up?" Cynthia could not hear Scott's response. Scott continued to stare at Marvin, making him uncomfortable and irritated, which prompted Cynthia to urge Marvin to hurry up and say goodbye to his friends so that they could leave. Marvin turned and started to walk across the street towards his friend's apartment. His hands were at his side, and he was wearing a short-sleeved t-shirt. As he drew closer to Scott, Marvin said, "Where you from?" Without answering, Scott pulled a .38 from the pocket of his sweatshirt and opened fire, hitting Marvin numerous times. Marvin turned around and tried to walk towards Cynthia's car. He collapsed to his knees as Scott continued to shoot at him. When he stopped firing, Scott ran down Mar Vista toward Maple. Cynthia managed to get Marvin in the car and dialed 911. Marvin suffered 10 gunshot wounds, 2 of which were fatal. Scott Lewis King, also known as Durone from PDL, was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 55 years to life. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.